Check 1 2. Test 1 2. Check 1 2. Test 1 2. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Test 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 1 2. Check 1 2. Check. Test. Check. Test. Check. Test. Check. Test.
You can just pass it off to Mark. All right, Mark, you want to come stand over here? Yes. Marla, right?
Yes, Marla.
All right. Marla and Joe.
Right.
All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. If you could find your seats, we're going to begin our informational meeting about the Thomas Fire. My name is Captain Kobe Johns. I'm from Fresno City Fire. But for the last 9 days, as you know, I've been working here on the Thomas Fire, and you have nearly 8,000 firefighters at this point working on this incident. You are almost in the very exclusive club of having the largest fire department in California wildfire history. We got a lot of people. And I would imagine that you wonder a little bit about who it is that's coming into your backyard and doing this. I want to tell you just a little bit, one quick story about the kind of people that have come to help you. There's a person on our team, he works in our plans section, and his job, he's a firefighter, he lives in Mendocino County. And his job is to sit behind a desk and type people's names into a computer as they come into base camp. We call it check-in. He sits there all day taking people's names and their phone numbers and ancillary information, and he does that for 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. It's the kind of job that most firefighters spend a career hiding from. That's what he does for us. In October, a wind-driven fire was sweeping through the counties of Marin and Sonoma and Napa and Mendocino. And as you know, many people lost their homes, including this firefighter. His home burned down and everything in it. The very next day, our team got assigned to go to one of those fires in Mendocino County. It was his home unit. It was his backyard. Every single person on our team would have understood if he didn't show up to work. In fact, it would have been expected that he would have stayed home and taken care of his affairs. But when he heard our team was assigned, he went to a uniform shop and he bought a new set of uniforms. He bought a new pair of boots. And he showed up to base camp and he sat behind a table and he pulled out a computer and he began entering people's names and typing in their phone numbers. And he did that for almost 14 days. That's the quality of the people that have come to help you. And I tell you that story simply to give you assurance and comfort that you're going to be in good hands. With that, I'd like to present Chief Navarro.
Thank you for coming, and to those of you who are watching. I want to thank all of you in respect to the honorable elected officials who are here, city and county executives, distinguished guests representing cooperating agencies and districts. My name is Ray Navarro, Fire Chief for the Carpinteria-Summerlin Fire Protection District. As you know, our community was the first to experience the enormity of the Thomas Fire. We were a bit more prepared. Fortunately, we were in position to see the fire coming. With members from our Type 3 incident management team, whose members include Carpinteria, Montecito, Santa Barbara County, Lompoc, Santa Maria, Vandenberg Air Force Base, and Los Padres Forest, departments all representing a team for planning purposes such like these. Along with the county sheriff, city manager, and staff, and the Office of Emergency Management, this team put together a plan using wildland fire attack, identifying the number of resources, evacuation zones, road closures, and control points 24 hours ahead of the potential fire threat. This plan was then shared with the Unified Command Team CAL FIRE Team 4 by our operations chiefs and was approved and authorized for the necessary resource to carry out the mission. You, the community, were a big part of the success because of your diligence in making your home safe with defensible space, adherence in the use of ready, set, go procedures. This allowed us to take and place 50 engines and personnel in a 24-hour period ahead of the potential threat, and the cooperation between the county sheriff, CHP, Caltrans, along with the County Office of Emergency Management to open up shelters and public messaging made our job easier. You will hear more of the details from the other presenters today and the strategies, how we combat this fire. This is a huge undertaking, and we don't take it lightly. We're not out of danger yet. But with this type of preparation, with this type of diligence and with your cooperation help, we feel that we will be successful. So now I want to introduce Jeff Pemberton. Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Jeff Pemberton, representing CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 4, California Interagency Management Team 4, and all the cooperators that have structures or jurisdictions at risk. I want to give you a brief summary. We're currently 237,500 acres, 25% contained as of this morning, and we have increased our population to just under 8,000 firefighters in your community. We still have 94,000 residents like yourselves evacuated. We have done some precision repopulation of a couple areas just adjacent to the county line with Ventura to get some more folks back home. Excuse me. We continue to have 33 helicopters, 6 Type 1 air tankers, which are large air tankers, 2 very large air tankers. Those are the 747 and the DC-10, and 2 C-130s from the California National Guard. We have established, as we talked about yesterday, the mobile retardant base here off Highway 154 in Santa Barbara, and we have established and moved 300 personnel of those 8,000 to our Santa Barbara camp, as we're referring to it, off of Highway 154 as well. The other thing I'd like to share with you is the values at risk that we're concerned with. We have 226,000 residents that we believe in our estimations are at risk. That includes 62,000 structures, 900 communication towers that allow us to talk not only on our cell phones, but allow your first responders to be able to talk on radios, 4 electrical power plants, 23 electrical substations, 301 miles of transmission, oil, and gas lines. The residential value, according to our estimations, is $46 billion. This is why we are putting every asset that we can on the ground to help us suppress this wildfire. With that, I would like to turn it over to one of our operational folks to give an operational update. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Chris Childers with the Santa Barbara County Fire Department, Battalion Chief, and operations out here on the Santa Barbara side of this. So we've had some good success today. We've had a very good day. If you probably noticed, a little bit cleaner and clearer air today as we brought that onshore flow in, or the onshore flow occurred. I'm reminded of Mark Twain, who said, everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it. We didn't do anything about it, but we had a great day. And the fire didn't spread much, and right now we are putting air tankers on the western edge of the fire. And so we've had some success, and the direct attack that we talked about 2 nights ago is looking at least possible, and we're going to fly it and do everything we can to make that happen. On the front country port, we've also got air tankers working and aircraft working on this part down into the Juncal area, and we have some equipment prepping up into the Zaca fire. So you notice today we have a map that shows a really good history. Here's our my firefighter buddy's helping me out, right? Thank you. Doing an awesome job. I'm just joking. Okay, so current fire is the red, as you know, and remember we have some black edges back here, and they're not showing on this map, but all of this is already black. That's our 25%. We're moving into here with some black, and we're actually going to open some of, I think we opened today a little bit of the evacuation zones, and we're going to get these first couple of evacuation zones within the next day or so. So we're starting to get people back home, and as we get this more black, we'll continue. We're having some success along here, more success in this area, using a little firing, and we're using aircraft again on this part. And then that takes us down into Pendola, or the Juncal area, and over to Pendola, and we have some work going on this side. So a very good day today. You notice, as we talked about, the fire itself stopped on the 10-year-old fuels of the Zaka fire. So we tie into the Zaka fire, we are looking pretty good. That's the same thing we feel about, and you heard me talk about, trying to tie it into the 9-year-old and 8-year-old fuels of the T and the Jesucita fire. But then when you get out there on the ground and you look, these fuels grew back a lot faster than the backcountry because of the marine influence. So these are a little bit heavier fuels. That's why we're still prepping, and we have plans if we have to do some firing and we're still working on the Windy Gap fuel break over here. We're still working on the fuel breaks down here and here and here in case we need them to use them. But very good day today, and with that, I'll pass this on to one of my boss on the operation, which is the operations section chief.
In case you didn't hear, my name's Mark Brown. I'm the operations section chief for the Thomas incident. My day job is deputy fire chief for the Marin County Fire Department. My role on this incident is really to be looking at the strategic planning of this incident. And if we're doing our job right, we're not looking one day in advance. We're looking several days, if not a week in advance. We have an acronym that we like to use to help us remember how we should do this, and we call it PACE. We make a primary plan, an alternate plan, a contingency plan, and an emergency plan. And in this case, we've gone much deeper than those 4 steps. And you guys are a very well-informed and active community, and we think it's very important for you to understand all of those steps. And so as we engage any of those plans, nothing ever surprises you. So our primary plan is exactly what we're doing now, and that is putting firefighters and retardant drops right on the fire's edge and hold it where it's at. At this time, we are having success. But I don't think I need to tell you that we haven't always been successful with this fire. The weather conditions have been such it's made it very difficult, especially with some predicted wind events that could be coming up. We have to be planning for that. So the primary plan, like I said, is to continue to hold the fire exactly where it's at. An alternate plan is, if you've been watching, and I think you all have, this fire's been moving laterally across the slope of the front country, a half mile to a mile per operational period. But it's been doing it in such a way that we can be successful in defending the structures and creating fire line or controlled edge along the bottom. So if the weather cooperates and that fire continues that march across the front country at a half mile to a mile a day, and we can continue to put that fire line in and protect you guys, then that's going to be our plan. Then our contingency plan. And the contingency plan is the one that we think is very important for everyone in the community to understand, because it's going to put smoke in the air, and it's going to be us that's putting the smoke in the air. It's a very proactive approach, because we want to be able to control how the fire moves across the landscape, and we want to be able to do it under our conditions. So we have many subject matter experts that have been looking at this plan for the past several days. Several of the people have just gotten out of a helicopter after reconning the area that we're looking at, and we have numerous people on the ground. And believe me when I say that we are reaching across the state and bringing the best people to do this. And so we're talking about a firing operation. And this firing operation is in order for us to get a control line in place under our conditions, rather than waiting for a wind event to push this tremendous volume of fire that is on the hillside in an uncontrolled fashion. And when the wind starts pushing it, we can throw everything we have at it, and it's not going to do any good. So just to give you a thumbnail sketch of what we're looking at, you see this giant ball of fire here, right? Or line of fire. We have the Camino Cielo Ridge line. That's been a managed fuel break, as you as informed members of the community know, and we've improved it, and we're going to look to use that as a portion of our control line. And then we have the Gibraltar Fire Road coming down, which is another one of your fuels management projects that goes through the Jesucita and the T fire. You bring that line down, and then you come across the slope and connecting the dots, was one of the terms we use, with either the defensible space that you've created at your homes, and then fuel management projects that you've had, and then our work going in and putting in hand line. And not only are we putting in the hand line, we're plumbing it with fire hose so that we have water on the fire's edge. This plan goes through several planning cycles, numerous subject matter experts looking at it, and then we make sure that our safety officers have looked at it and they agree that it is the right plan, and then all of our unified commanders look at it and make sure it's the right plan. So in a thumbnail sketch, what we would be doing is firing from about this area, bringing a little bit of fire down, and then we'll also bring some fire down from the top to tie in to where we had that little bit of a mid-slope firing operation, and we'll buffer this piece of line on the Gibraltar Fire Road. And the goal of that is that if the fire starts running laterally across the slope, then it can't continue once it hits that line. We will also be bringing fire along the bottom of the slope and the top of the slope simultaneously. And that's to allow the fire to burn together. And we will keep us, by doing it simultaneously across the bottom and the top, the fire doesn't run all the way up to the top so fast that it sends a spot fire over the side and gets into the Santa Ynez drainage. And conversely, that there's not so much fire up above that a downslope wind would push the fire right past our lines. And then we would bring our firing operations to the edge of the black here, and the edge of the burned edge, and the end of the fire burned edge here. So that's our firing plan. And I want to emphasize that is Plan C. Plan A is to hold the fire exactly where it's at. Plan B is to let it progress slowly across the hillside, and we control the bottom edge and look for opportunities to continue to tie it into the ridgeline. Plan C is that firing operation I just discussed. And then when I told you we have an E, or emergency, we have multiple emergency plans. The one that affects the community is that we have approximately 400 fire engines staggered throughout the communities, and it would be doing point-to-point structure defense. We also have Highway 154 off the map that we have been preparing so that if the fire does make a hard run at that, we can do a similar firing plan that I just described along Gibraltar and along the bottom, along Highway 154 and up through Windy Gap. We're also concerned about the piece of fire that's in the Santa Ynez drainage. You can see what a great job the Zaka Fire has done in containing the fire. That the shape right here is not an accident. We're going to continue to use that as an anchor point for us. And we have the Gibraltar Fire Road on the other side of the community of Cielo tying into the reservoir. We would do a similar firing operation there to stop that spread so we can hold it there. And then our contingency plan behind that is the Windy Gap Fire Road. And that is, in a nutshell, our strategic plan for this incident. I'll pass it off to our F-band and give it to him.
Move this out here a little bit. My name is Brendan Ripley, and I'm a fire behavior analyst with Ventura County Fire Department. And just to give you a little update on some of the fuels and how the weather has affected the conditions out there and some of the challenges that we're faced with. If you could put up the ERC chart. So over the past few days, we have experienced some very, very dry conditions. And the fire initially was a wind-driven fire. When we speak about northeast winds, it's where the wind comes from. And it blows the fire basically in a southwest direction. But I want to focus in on the fuels and how extremely dry it is out there. I'll explain this chart. It must look like a number of squiggly lines to you. So this is an energy release component. And basically, it's an evaluation of the fuels or the vegetation out there, both the live and the dead fuels. And it's done at the weather stations that are permanently set in and around the county. This is set up for the coastal area that affects your specific area here in Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, and Montecito. The gray line that you see right here is the average over when this weather station was set in place in 2003. So we're looking at almost 13 years of evaluation or data, and that's the average fuel moisture or ERC value in that period of time. The red line that you see at the top is the maximums for each and every day, and this is from September to December 31st. Over those 13 years, these are the maximums that we've experienced during that period of time. The dashed line is 2017, and I want to draw your attention to where we're at here on this fire. When the fire started, our ERC value was 62. Today, it is 126. And you can see how far it has progressed beyond the historical high ERC value. And it's the historic relative humidity or lack thereof that we have experienced that has really risen that to that point. It is unprecedented. As a fire behavior analyst, normally we would flirt with this red line here, but I have never ever seen it exceed it to the degree that it has here. So let's go back to that fire history map and see how it plays out. So the fire is very active along this north flank up here, and the reason why is if you look at the gray areas outside the fire history that we have here, a lot of those areas have either no fire history or it hadn't burned since the 1932 Matilaha fire. And now it's consuming and being those dry fuels as it moves through those fuel beds. And that's in direct response to the dry conditions that we've had, even in the reduction of winds that we've had along those areas. As it moves into the Zaka fire and the Day fire and the other fires that are in around there, I don't want you to fall into a false sense of security that the fire goes out. It's a change in fire behavior. It's more receptive to water drops from helicopters. It will not progress through those fuels as readily because it has a reduced fuel load. It doesn't have the dead component associated with it. Wind will move it through that vegetation. This is the area that we're looking at right now. It's burning in a burn scar here that was part of the 1932 Matilaha fire. And so it has a very rich, heavy fuel loading that's being consumed by the fire. And as they had said earlier, as it moves into the recent burns, we have a change in fire behavior because of reduction in the fuels and better success to control the fire. What we're looking at over the next 3 days are 3 more weather patterns, 2 of which really stays pretty much consistent with what this fire has experienced. But it's the middle one from Friday night into Saturday morning that could affect your coastline here, and I want you to be prepared for it. We have a small little cold front that's moving through an area. Unfortunately, it's not bringing any moisture with it. It's very dry. But what it's going to do is it's going to introduce north winds into this range. And it's a very slight sundowner effect, and I use that because I know that all of you that live here know the effects of a sundowner. But what we've had in the past couple nights, being down along the front country, it's very chilly, very cold. And as soon as you get up to where the fire is burning, it warms up. It's in the mid-60s. And that cold barrier is the marine layer want to establish itself. But because of all that dry air that has been introduced out here, it doesn't bring any moisture back in with it as it normally would. But it's holding the fire at bay. It burns very active across the top of the ridge. It backs down through the vegetation that's here down behind the homes and gives us the opportunity to implement that first plan that he talked about. But Friday into Saturday is our next challenge. And that's where those winds from the north could line up and push down into those canyons and affect those areas. So I want you to be prepared. I want you to make sure that you are prepared for that possibility. Sunday is another return of a possibility moderate Santa Ana wind event that mainly affects this area, the fire out here, out towards Fillmore in this corridor. It reintroduces winds into the northeast and mainly kind of goes back into the same pattern that thus far has been a good weather pattern for us to be able to manage the fire in this area. And I'll close with this. We are very, very cautious in working in with this fuel bed. The other night I was working, kind of talking with some firemen, kind of looking at the weather and how things were burning in up there. And I looked over at them. They were making a decision whether they were going to drop off the hillside and kind of one of those questionable operations. And I looked over him and I go, you know that you're within the Romero burn scar. And the Romero fire was 1971. I was a young teenager in the Thousand Oaks area, and we lost 4 dozer operators to a fire in the weather scenarios that accompany the sundowner winds. And one of the individuals behind me said, yeah, it's right behind you. And it was in the canyon right behind us. He said we had just replaced the crosses back this year. We had found the burnover site, and we had attached new crosses to it. We are well aware of the potentials of this area, and as firefighters, it is something that we operate safely, effectively, but safety is our number one concern for the public that's out there and for us here. One other tidbit, as a fire behavior analyst, I'm constantly looking for opportunity to fire to get out and beyond our control. And one of the things people will walk up to us and ask us, how can we help? I drove up in one of the mandatory areas yesterday, and I looked over to the left, and I saw the roof of a home that was completely covered in leaves. We have a term, it begins from the house out. If you're going to help us, you need to provide hardening to your house. You need to eliminate what we refer to as a receptive fuel bed. And that's leaves on the roof, leaves in the gutters. We've just experienced on the backside of an extraordinary drought here in California. And a lot of our ornamental vegetation has been stressed. A lot of it has died. And we just kind of come to a place where we just kind of not see it. I've had to reevaluate my home and look at the vegetation around, and I'm going to make some changes to it because I have some vulnerability. So look at your homes. Look at places in which you can be vulnerable. Look at the Ready, Set, Go document. It will explain all that you need to know and how to harden your home and increase your success in the event that you're impacted by a wildfire. I'd like to turn this over to a representative from Edison to speak to you about some of the issues in regards to power.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhonda Guthrie with Southern California Edison. The fire is continuing to threaten the transmission line serving Santa Barbara, but at this time, no Santa Barbara customers are without power as a result of the Thomas Fire. SCE crews are continuing to monitor the situation and is coordinating emergency efforts with state, county, and local officials. SCE personnel have been on site at the Santa Barbara County Operations Center all week. SCE is requesting residential and commercial customers in the Santa Barbara area to significantly reduce power consumption throughout the duration of this event to ease potential strain on the local system. You can do this by turning off all unnecessary appliances and equipment, turning off lights when leaving a room, using electric fans to reduce air conditioning use when practical, limiting the opening and reopening of refrigerators, which are major users of electricity in most homes. Please note, too, that all planned maintenance outages have been canceled at least through Sunday. I would also like to share some safety tips in fire areas and high wind conditions. Remember to check emergency supplies to be sure you have a battery-operated radio, a flashlight, and fresh batteries. Do not use candles for lighting as they pose a fire hazard. Power outages in the area may impact traffic signals, and vehicles should treat all intersections as four-way stops. Use extreme caution. If you use a generator, place it outdoors and plug individual appliances directly into it using a heavy-duty extension cord. Connecting generators directly to household circuits creates backfeed, which is dangerous to repair crews. Please consult the manufacturer's manual for operating the generator. And lastly, do not use any equipment indoors that is designed for outdoor heating or cooking. Such equipment can emit carbon monoxide and other toxic gases. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Ponce. I'm the captain of the Santa Barbara, California Highway Patrol. I need to advise everybody that we will be shutting down the 154 beginning tomorrow morning from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. each day to allow for ingress and egress of all the fire equipment coming out of the Cachuma Lake camp. We also would like to keep everyone off the 154 if you could, even during, not during those hours. So please utilize the 101 as an alternate route. This will allow for all the fire equipment to get to the fire as smoothly as possible. And if you do travel the 154, do expect delays. Also, I would like to remind everybody that the area above the 192 is a mandatory evacuation area. My officers have been directed to not allow anyone in that area. So please cooperate with their instructions and don't try to pass their road closures. If you do live south of the 192 and your residence is only accessible from the 192, you will be asked for identification. The officers will verify your address and then allow you to pass through to go to your home. South of the 192, that's in a voluntary evacuation zone. So please cooperate with the officers. This is so we can keep people who don't live there out of the area. And this is for your safety and for the safety of the law enforcement personnel, fire personnel in the area. And again, we just want to continue to thank our partners in the Sheriff's Department and fire departments for all their cooperation and the continued support from the public. We greatly, greatly appreciate you guys. So thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm Bernard Malecki, the Undersheriff for Santa Barbara County. It is my privilege to represent the men and women of the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Office. Besides the justified thanks and congratulations to the firefighters and law enforcement officers, it occurred to me that there is a group of people that you never see, but that are integral to what we're doing here today, and that's the men and women who operate the communication center in Santa Barbara County, our dispatchers. They have answered literally thousands of phone calls and dispatched thousands of units across the southern part of this county, and they've really done an extraordinary job. So please keep them in your thoughts as well. There have been changes in the evacuation areas that was alluded to earlier. The mandatory evacuation order today was reduced in the area of Rincon Point to a warning area. This means that it's now a voluntary evacuation area. People will be allowed back in there. There are approximately 98 residences there, and sheriff's deputies assisted residents as they move back into those areas. Also at 4 o'clock today, right at the beginning of this town hall meeting, all of the evacuation warnings from the 101 south to the ocean, from Santa Claus Lane at Padero, east to Rincon Beach Park, have also been lifted. There are 5,700 people in this area. There are now currently 7,100 residents under mandatory evacuation and 28,000 people living in warning areas. Fire behavior, people have talked about it at length. I'm not going to dwell on it. Just please remember that if you live in an evacuation area, you still need to be prepared to go at a moment's notice. We've had a couple of days now of good news, of calming news, and we're a little bit concerned that people will start to become complacent. As has been mentioned previously, there are some weather conditions forecast that could cause this situation to change very quickly, and we want to make sure that everyone is ready about that. I'd like to spend a little bit of time to remind you there's a great deal of collaboration that goes on between law enforcement and fire personnel, not just in the evacuation of areas, but also in repopulation. The introduction of people back into the areas where they live is a very formal process. It's carried out in a way to ensure the safety of everyone involved, that all the heavy equipment has been moved out of the area, that utilities have been restored. So just please keep that in mind and be patient. We know how frustrating it is for people to be out of their homes, and we are working together with the Incident Command to alleviate that as quickly as possible. Reminder that I've thrown out for the last couple of days. If you live in a voluntary evacuation zone, please keep in mind that some of your neighbors may have self-evacuated, and keep an eye on their house. Treat it as you would a neighborhood watch project. And remember that Sheriff's Office, Highway Patrol, and Santa Barbara police officers are continuing to respond to calls for service. They are able to do so. In addition, we will continue to patrol the evacuated areas and ensure the safety and security of people's property. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today and for the opportunity to be of service. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move into a question and answer portion of our evening. We'll do this just a little bit differently than the way we've been doing it. Our ops section chiefs, they need to get back and fight this fire, but we want to provide some opportunities to ask them some questions. It seems like the bulk of the questions are typically about the fire itself, so I'd like to invite both Chris and Mark up to the stage, and we will open this up here for some question and answer. We're going to do it like we have been doing it. We'll go by section. We'll do 3 questions per section, so we're going to start to this side. If you have a question, can you raise your hand real high? All right, in the very, very back, you're number 1, right in front of him. Ma'am, right on the aisle, yeah, you're number 2. And sir, you're number 3. Okay, go ahead and put your hands down. Let's start with question number 1.
Hi, my name is James. I had a question about A, B, and C. One of the guys were talking about, Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and then Plan E for emergency. Best case scenario, Plan A, how would that play out if we were able to move forward just with Plan A? How would the best case scenario play out? Thank you.
Okay, we're hitting it as hard as we can with aerial support right now. Again, the first day we've been able to do that. The question was, how does the direct attack method work? If we can stop this fire on the hill where it is and cut line around it, we basically remove the fuel from in front of the fire. To do that, we have to cool it down enough so that firefighters can get next to it and hit the direct attack, which means we use chainsaws and equipment to cut a fire line by removing the fuel adjacent to the fire's edge. That means the air attack is hitting it hard. We're successful there. We start cutting that line up to the hill, and if we can get it up to Camino Cielo, we're successful. And then we have to hold it a few days and mop it up so that we can turn it black like these portions down here have already been done. So does that answer that question? That's the direct attack. It's going to be a challenge. You know how steep this country is, and with 60-plus-year-old fuels, it's pretty hard work. But if we could stop it there, it certainly reduces the headache and all of the other options.
Thank you. I'd like to ask, is there a URL or an address that would give us the best current information and even which phase of this plan that you're operating on now?
Yeah, so if you look at, let's see, maybe the next page, Pono, we had a list of our resources. We're getting there. One more.
there's also a document that's available on the table in the foyer that identifies some of those email address
All right,
URLs.
so if I can direct your attention to the screens, these websites all produce the latest maps that we're using, provide the most current information. The fire.ca.gov, that's hosted by CAL FIRE. That's a wonderful website, as is NCWeb. That's hosted by the National Wildfire Coordinating Group. That also has just spectacular map products and information-based tools that you can use. So both of those are readily available to you, as are all the others there. I'll leave those up there for a little bit. And question number 3. Yeah, where was number 3? Okay, there we go.
Thank you. There were a lot of helicopters that seemed to be increased in number on the 154, 192 area. Looked like they were picking up water, taking it to the fire. Is that a change in operations, and can we expect to see that continue?
So I mentioned last night, and good question. We last night, yesterday, or 2 days ago, ordered a portable retardant plant or base, and that is a way that we can take water from a water tender, mix it with retardant at location, and then fill helicopters at that spot. And the place we've set up the portable retardant base is right there on the bridge to nowhere above Highway 154, right about a mile off the 101. You know, most of you know where that area is. And so it's about a mile up the 154. There's an overpass over 154, and it's an open area across from it, a county park, and that's where we've set up the mobile retardant base. So that's where the helicopters are filling up, and that's allowing us to use retardant, which has a more effective power than just straight water.
Okay, we're going to move to the middle section. We got time for about 3 questions. Yeah, raise your hands real high, sir, right there. You're going to be number 1. Right behind will be 2. And way in the back, you'll be number 3. Go ahead and put your hands down, number 1.
Yeah, we live at the top of Mission Canyon on the eastern ridge, and it was just inside the eastern boundaries of the Jesucita fire and the western boundary, I believe, of the T fire. So we're particularly interested in if we could ask for further clarification on the plans for the Gibraltar Road area, the protection from that line.
Yeah, I can kind of address that just to give you an idea of what we've got going. If you could, the ops map, if you could, and focus in on that, the area, I'll show you. Okay, the one you had before this, which has the fire history on it, the gray one. There you go. Perfect. Okay, the area we're talking about right now, your question, you live somewhere right about here, is that correct?
We're in Upper Mission Canyon on the eastern ridge.
Oh, okay. Over here. Okay, so our plan right now, go, can you give me close in now right here on my thumb? Okay. So right now, we're cutting a dozer line and connecting it to a hand line right into here, east off the Camino Cielo, and it comes down the hill east of the Flores Flat. It comes out right at the power lines. So that will be something like right in here. And then we will be following a couple of cutoffs and the Gibraltar Road down here to the fire line of the T fire that separated the T and the Jesucita fire. We've improved that hand line and are bringing it down to the T gardens. And then from the T gardens, we're just going basically behind all of the homes and completing this line all the way across to this edge. Does that make sense? And then the top of that is the Camino Cielo fuel break. And we've scraped the ridge off like we do on all the big fires. Got it?
Hi, could you talk a little bit more about the contingency plan, and if you're going to do it, when you would do it, and how does the fact that we're looking at some winds popping up on Friday and Saturday influence your timing?
Okay. Again, we have the pace. We're here at the primary. We're trying to get it. The alternate is to let it help itself, work itself over, and keep trying to get it. If the wind starts to change and force us and starts to push the fire towards our control lines on the edge there, this control line I'm talking about, that would be when we would have to start firing it. Originally, it could be, if the fire really went bad tonight, we might have to start tomorrow morning. But we're not planning on tomorrow morning. We're still prepping it. We're looking pretty good. If we had to do it, probably the next day, if it pushed our hand before then. But again, we're hoping that we can get either direct or let it do its thing slowly. If it starts to look like it's going to force our hand, that's when we would make that decision.
Yes, hi. My question or comment is this. I know we're all really concerned about the air quality in our area and how poor it's been over the past week and a half. However, having said that, and we're all being encouraged to wear masks, by the way, I'm just wondering why it is every time I look on TV and I see all the film footage, both live and recorded, mostly on KEYT, why is it the firefighters, I haven't seen one firefighter wear a mask, not one. So I guess my question is, if the air pollutants are as bad as they say it is, and here these guys are on the front lines fighting this thing, I haven't seen one wear one, and just would wonder if you could respond to that.
No one ever said we were geniuses, okay? Obviously, we should all be wearing protection. And structural firefighters, the county, we do both structural fires and wildland fires. And so I'm trained, and we're all trained with wearing breathing apparatus. And as, I don't know if you know, but when we fight structure fires, we have to, because of all the toxics in your house that burn, make a lot of toxic gases, and there's no way you'd survive those inhaling that. On wildland fires, typically those firefighters are out there working very physically hard, and they need all the oxygen they can get. And so basically we're told we should wear masks. We all know we should. But they're out there trying to do a job, and putting something in restricting your breathing doesn't help you do that hard job. So, yes. Does that answer the question? That's the kind of dedication these guys have, okay?
Yes. Point taken. Touche. All right. We're going to move over to this section here. I believe we got 1 through 3. Excellent. All right. If you have a question in this section, operationally related to our fire, go ahead and raise your hand, and we'll see if we can get to you. Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Thank you, guys.
Thank you much, guys. We'll see you later.
There's a question that came up. It keeps coming up, and that is, are we grabbing water out of the ocean to put onto the fire? And the answer to that, the short answer is no, we're not. Could we? It's sort of a last resort. We're not there. We have a mobile retardant facility that we can dip into, but we're also using Gibraltar Reservoir and I think Jameson Lake as well. So as you see those helicopters with the big buckets on them, they're not grabbing water out of the ocean. Okay? What I'd like to do now is we have a number of representatives from local agencies, everywhere from the Red Cross to the Food Bank to air pollution. I'd just like to give them a couple minutes to introduce themselves, say where they're from, and give you a quick synopsis of what they feel like they'd like to present. And then we're going to have them stay up here and they can answer questions pertaining to their area of expertise. Okay? If you feel like all your questions have been answered already, feel free to file out. Just do so in a quiet and orderly fashion. All right, thank you very much. Let's have our next speaker. Eric, that's going to be you. Oh.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Fayram with the Santa Barbara County Public Works Department with the County Flood Control District. And just some updates as we hear about the firefighting and as they progress with trying to attack this fire. we're mindful of the fact that winter is upon us, frankly. And so we have several debris basins that are constructed across the South County from Santa Barbara to Montecito, which will be our main point of attack for this winter. Starting Friday morning, we will be, with the permission of the fire department, which we've received, we will be moving a contractor into the Gubernador debris basin, which is at the far east end of our county, Gubernador Canyon, which was almost entirely burned out. As the fire suppression efforts continue, we'll start moving to the west, and we will be touching up debris basins as fire personnel deem it safe for us to enter as well. I would remind everybody again, if you're in the fire area, we do have information for protection of your home. This is called the Homeowner's Guide to Flood Prevention and Response. It's available on our website at countyofsb.org/PWD for Public Works Department. The link to those resources are there. And finally, I would remind you again, if you are looking at getting flood insurance, these debris basins will not stop the water that's going to come down this winter. If you deem that you need flood insurance, there's a 30-day grace period before any claims can be filed against flood insurance, which means if you filed for insurance today or purchased insurance today, it would be 1 month from today that you would be eligible for a claim. And with that, I'll be available for questions after.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Talkin. I'm the CEO of the Food Bank of Santa Barbara County. So with a fire or any other emergency, the first concern is to make sure that ourselves and our families are safe. The second concern is to stay safe. And generally, the third concern is when do we eat? So the Food Bank has been working to support not only those who are displaced by the fire, but also a much larger group of people. These are food insecure working families who rely on supplemental food programs. These programs are typically provided by the 300 agencies and programs that we work with countywide. And we found a challenge over the last week. And that challenge is that a lot of these programs are not running. There's concern for their staff and the air quality of programs that are often outside. So the Food Bank has stepped in to basically run our own grocery distribution programs. These are taking place from CARP to Goleta, and the programs are going to be running Monday to Friday. They started this Monday, and they'll be running next week as well. The programs run from 11 to 1 p.m., and currently they're at 4 locations. In Carpinteria, the program is at St. Joseph's Church. That's the big Catholic church that is on Linden Avenue. In the east side of Santa Barbara, it's at the Franklin Community Center. On the west side of Santa Barbara, it is at the Boys and Girls Club. And then in Goleta, it is at the Food Bank warehouse itself, which is on Hollister Avenue. It's right by the Page Youth Center. So those programs are 11 to 1, Monday to Friday. There's groceries available, staple items, protein, and fresh produce. So if people need them, come and get them. Detailed information is available on our website, Foodbank SBC, as in Santa Barbara County.org. Thank you, and stay safe.
Hi everyone, Kimberly Coley, Executive Director for your local Red Cross. Just wanted to provide an update on the work that our Red Cross volunteers and staff have been doing, working tirelessly, of course, throughout the night. At 3 different locations, we still have full shelter operations in place, starting with the largest site at the Ventura County Fairgrounds, where last night we had an overnight count of 181 individuals. In addition to the fairgrounds, we also have Oxnard College, where we've had a pretty steady pace of 30 overnight clients, as well as here in Santa Barbara, our site out at UCSB in the Recreation Center, where last night we had 67 overnight clients. As I shared with everyone yesterday, in addition to the folks that are sleeping in our shelters, we also are serving hundreds of community members through a variety of services, including 3 hot meals a day snacks, water, obviously just immediate comfort and relief provided by volunteers through a hug or a high five or a "it's going to be okay." In addition to a variety of health services, disaster mental health, and just spiritual care counseling. So a lot of really great work being done by Red Cross and community volunteers as well as partners. And I've had a lot of questions about pets. So if you do need to evacuate, if evacuation orders are to be expanded, or maybe you've outstayed your welcome at a friend's house and you need to now come to one of our shelters, you're more than welcome, as well as your pets. So thanks to the work of community partners, we do have accommodations for our pets. And also you can dial 211 and be connected to free transportation to provide shuttle service to and from the shelter locations. In addition to those questions, I've also just been asked how the community can help. And so first, I want to just thank everyone for the outpouring of love and support. We've received so many donated goods, from clothing and personal care, hygiene materials, to food items. And right now, our shelter sites are very well taken care of. So thank you so much. We have meals covered into early next week, and I just can't thank you all for the support. What you can do, the quickest way to really help, is to make a financial contribution. You can do that online. If you don't have access to internet, I have cards with me. I can connect you with how to drop off a donation. You can also volunteer. Let's face it, our community is going to need our help for weeks and months to come. So we would love for you to volunteer, get signed up as a Red Crosser, put yourself in our database so that even if you're not able to help with this response, you're ready for the next one. And in addition, just be an advocate for us. We've got hundreds of volunteers that are working throughout the night to take care of our friends and neighbors right here in Santa Barbara and in Ventura County. So we would love just your support, thanking everyone for pitching in. And obviously we know we're better together, so thank you for helping us just share the word of the good work that's being done. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Erin Arlen Janae. I'm the Air Pollution Control Officer for the Santa Barbara County Air District. Let's see. First thing I wanted to let everyone, make everyone aware of, we've been able to deploy 3 temporary monitoring stations in our community that will expand our permanent network. So now we have monitoring stations that measure particulate matter 2.5. This is the ultrafine PM. In Carpinteria, Santa Ynez Valley, as well as Los Alamos. With that, we've been able to generate maps of the county where we're able to upload to our website the air quality forecast for the upcoming day. Visually speaking, this is what the map will look like, or it does look like. This is actually today's air quality conditions. And, we've been under this cloud of smoke for well over a week now, and I know we're all excited when we could actually see the sun. And we think, oh good, it's getting much better. But you just need to realize it's the ultrafine PMs that are invisible, that you can't necessarily see, that can still be in the air. And that's what our monitoring network is geared to measure. So I really encourage all of you to go to our forecast, see what your local air quality conditions are, before you plan your activities. And so this is what the map is today. This is our forecast for tomorrow. This is what we want to see more of, the green. And typically we do. So when you're in Carpinteria, it's very unhealthy. In Santa Barbara, we're unhealthy. Goleta, it's forecasted to be unhealthy for sensitive groups and moderate than in Santa Ynez Valley. When you're in the areas that are the darker colors, we encourage all of you to take steps and take precautions and stay indoors as much as possible. We're also working with the public health on messaging related to cleanup. Oh, okay, good. I'm with you now. So if you go the other direction. Okay, so in this yellow box here, you'll see the second bullet there. That's the forecast maps right there. We have them in English and in Spanish. So this is the one I brought up that showed where we are today, and the darker red still and purple down in the southern part of our county. And then the next day's forecast is also on there, and we're updating these regularly. So in addition, these are forecasts. If you scroll down a little further, just scroll all the way down. Oh, go back. The table down below, this is the most recent hourly conditions for our area. And this is what we had historically placed on our website. It was helpful. It listed out all of our monitoring stations that we have countywide, but it didn't provide the visual display of where individuals might live outside of this exact location of our monitoring network. That's why we have migrated over to this. And ultimately, we haven't got there yet, but ultimately this too will be updated on an annual or hourly basis. So, last thing I wanted to mention, we're not quite there. I know we have a long ways to go still with this fire, but we will need to begin talking about cleanup. We have been doing a lot of work to encourage and strongly recommend that leaf blowers are not used. I know this ash is horrible to live around, but we don't want to blow it up and train the ash into the air and break it into smaller particles. The smaller the particles, the more harmful to our health. So we issued a press release just this afternoon as it relates to cleaning up ash, and we're going to go and further with that message tomorrow. So please stay aware and go to our website as far as information for your current day air quality conditions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Charity Dean. I'm the health officer for Santa Barbara County Public Health Department. I have a few quick updates. I've been asked what the hotline number is for mask distribution. If you want to know the locations or other information, that number is 681-4373. I was asked some questions yesterday, specifically, is burning poison oak and the oil that it has as damaging to the lungs as getting the plant on your skin? The answer is no. That people have had reactions from the plant burning, like in a burn pile, but that was likely related to the smoke. It's not clear that the oil itself would cause any different health effects from burning, but we would still advise caution to not get too close to those fumes. The other question was regarding ash on personal gardens, since many of us in Santa Barbara have gardens in our backyard. And the first advice is if you have produce in December in your garden, which you might, you can wash the produce, wash it really well, or when in doubt, throw it out. But you could wash it off maybe with a dab of dish soap and then still consume that produce. The ash that's falling is from, the fuel it's burning is mainly trees and wildfire. So that ash falling onto our soil is not a health concern for growing plants again in the spring. So go ahead and plan on growing your vegetables like you normally would. If the ash that was falling, if we go into a worst case scenario and it's from houses and cars burning, we will have some different advice for you. And we just issued a press release with the locations for distribution of N95 masks tomorrow. You can find that online, and I'll be here for any other questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Adame, Community Outreach Coordinator for Santa Barbara County Animal Services. And just a quick update, us and our partner agencies like the Humane Society and Earl Warren Showgrounds are currently caring for over 1,500 animals. Lots of people are asking us where they can make donations. We really would encourage monetary donations at this point. We've been overwhelmed and incredibly happy to receive donations of food, hay, shavings, all kinds of things. So monetary donations can be made to Santa Barbara County Animal Services. They can be made to Santa Barbara Humane Society, Santa Barbara Equine Evac and Assistance. We are still manning our hotline. We can assist with evacuations. We can assist with if you need crates to get your animals out, and we still have space for animals. Thank you.
Okay, what we'll do now is take some questions. If anyone in this section has a question for any of our presenters here, we can go ahead and cover those. Yes, right here.
What exactly
Sure. The question was, what is the purpose and function of a debris basin? So a debris basin is actually an impoundment on a stream channel, and typically these are at the base of the mountains, and it's the area typically where you come off of a steep hillside creek terrain into the more coastal plain. What happens is debris will come off these fires and will fill up and clog creek channels and cause flooding to go over bank and then into residential or commercial areas. Our plan, our hope is we trap the big debris in those debris basins, and then we would excavate that out, maybe several times over the course of a winter, depending on what the rainfall is. And then that way, it just as the firefighters talked about, they want to fire out areas under their circumstances and under their plans, we want this debris to fall out where we want it to be, which is not down in the urban area. They are not fail-safe. These are oftentimes limited in size to the geography and topography that we have available, and so they do what they can. And as I mentioned, they do not stop water. Water will flow over, and so the flooding threat from additional runoff from a burned watershed will be with us for several years. But that's what they're designed to do, and we're lucky to have them in this area.
In this section, last chance. Okay, right up front. Yes, right here.
I wanted to know about cleaning up the blacktop driveways and the plants. They don't blow them.
It's okay to water plants. As far as large-scale cleanup like blacktop, our Emergency Operations Center has convened a group of folks who are experts in ash cleanup and best practices, and they are going to be issuing some recommendations on that tomorrow regarding large-scale cleanup. So hold tight for those.
Okay, let's move to the middle. Yeah, ma'am, right there.
Thank you all for your work. Speaking of large-scale cleanup, can someone address the issue of the city doing the street sweeping today? And I know it's planned for tomorrow.
Crickets. Okay, right here. Yes.
Hi, Helene Schneider, Mayor of City of Santa Barbara. We've been consulting with the county EOC. We are suspending residential street sweeping tomorrow. We'll probably do the State Street overnight when no one's around, just to get as much ash as we can. But we're working with county EOC and consulting with them. But for now, we're suspending residential street sweeping.
All right, thank you for that question. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the flood control basin at the end of Via Regina, which is off of Old San Marcos Road. I know that's out of the immediate area of concern at the moment, but I live in that area, and I was there when that basin was carved out, and it worked extremely well during that heavy winter that we had right after the Painted Cave fire. My question is, why has that basin been allowed to fill up with trees and other vegetation and basically appears to be useless now? Can that be renovated before the winter gets here?
Yeah, so good question. In fact, if you look at a lot of our debris basins, they all look similar with a lot of trees in the basin. And that by itself does not necessarily harm anything. The actual volume of matter from that vegetation is not that significant. In fact, at all of our debris basins that we've seen in the fire area, none of them burned, Chief. We wanted you to work on that. Would have made our job easier. Everything around it burned, but they didn't. So the plan is, our adopted plan is that in the case of a fire like we have now, and I'll use the Gobernador at the far eastern end of our county as an example, that will all be removed starting Friday morning, and that basin will be maxed out for its capacity and availability to take debris. Debris basins in an unburned watershed are not as critical for it to do that, and they still function. And so unless the fire gets over into the Maria Ignacia drainage. We will not be doing it in those particular basins, and mostly because it's not needed. It provides us no benefit. If it does burn, then that's what we would do.
Our middle section, yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Is there a hazard to people's eyes with the things that are in the air?
It can certainly cause eye irritation, so we're seeing a lot of people with dry eyes, scratchy, itchy eyes. Typically does not cause a permanent long-term damage like you would get with a corneal abrasion, but we are seeing irritated eyes, so using eye drops and staying hydrated is the best advice if you're experiencing that.
Anyone else in the middle? Okay, we'll move over here to this section. Do we have any questions? Okay. Can you give a round of applause for our presenters for making time for that? Hona, would you pull up the list of the trapline locations? So yesterday I made a couple promises to you, and I just want to deliver on those. One is I said we have some physical locations where we will staff with public information officers, both from the Forest Service and from either local government or CAL FIRE. And on the screen are those locations. These are places where you could go throughout the day and you will find a map, updated information, but you'll actually be able to engage with one of us and hopefully get your questions met. So take note of where those are. We actually have almost 70 public information officers on this incident, just out and about, organizing these meetings, trying to keep you guys updated. That's the most public information officers I've ever seen on an incident. That's quite a chore, but they're out there doing that. And so I would encourage you to take advantage of those. The other thing I said I would bring for you is a pamphlet called Ready, Set, Go. We get an awful lot of questions about how to prepare your home, if you are evacuating, how to leave it when you when you're forced to leave. All that information is in this little pamphlet. Some of you already have those, but those are available for you in the back. We also have them in Spanish as well. We'll do this again tomorrow. You may not realize it, but yesterday we had over 11,000 people tuning in via Facebook Live and Twitter. So even though you're seeing the crowd physically sort of thin out here, it is only growing with our live simulcast. So thank you again. We will see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock right back here.